So let's get into some happy, warm, fuzzy things with Steve Wright, because it's still fairly raw, it's still fairly new, and a lot of people are saying, they still miss him. And I'm going to get to your comments, who they're wonderful. I mean, just amazing. A real outpouring in the comments on all of the videos we've done about Steve Wright. But friend told me that, and I think he was there for Children in Need. He said that one year, Children in Need wanted to do it. It's a technical term. They wanted to do a live throw, which means it kind of go, hello, this is Adrian Allen, and we now go to Steve Wright in the studio. Ping, cut, Steve Wright in the studio. So that's kind of a live throw. So they wanted to do a live throw to the Steve Wright radio show. A request which kind of threw Steve a little bit, because he had to frantically go around and say to some of the staff, come on, come in the studio. When I tell you, clap. I've just remembered a great story. And so he had to get all this BBC staff in the studio, so that they could, because the studio wasn't very big, had to cram in tight like sardines into the studio and whoop and applaud. All to maintain the illusion that the applause sound effect he played at the beginning of each show was real. Oh, come on. I'm going to tell you a very quick story about how live radio can go abhorrently wrong. So I worked for a radio station which shall remain nameless. You'll work out why when we get into the meat of this story. So, and I've literally just remembered it while I was talking about clapping. So these two people are very eminent in their fields. One's a very, very, very eminent journalist, and one he's just very eminent. I'm not going to identify either of them. Hopefully they'll laugh. And so it was a live, they decided that they wanted that afternoon, they wanted to do a live broadcast from the Tory party conference in Blackpool. So it was like, book hotels, get across there, live link, engineers working out everything, so that they just sat there with a microphone each, just talking about and describing, because it's radio, what they could see, where they were, what was going on, and then, talking to various interviewees. And it was great radio, fabulous radio, except Margaret Thatcher made this huge entrance, and the whole place went mad. I mean, you're talking 84, 85. She was still in her pomp. And the Tory party conference, she walked in, and from what they were describing, she was kind of wafting down some stairs, or she was walking onto stage in the Tory party conference. And then one of them, I don't know whether this was a setup, or whether they were egging each other on to be naughty on radio. So it was definitely a code brown. And one of them said, "Oh, it's Margaret Thatcher receiving the Tory party clap." Silence. I mean, the place where the Tory party conference was taking part, I mean, all the applause and going mad and going nuts. It was Margaret Thatcher walking on the stage, and there was silence from the two people in the booth that were meant to be commentating. And then the other one went, "Oh yeah, she's definitely receiving the Tory party clap." And then it got naughty schoolboyish. There was like little titters, little giggles. And the other one went, "I bet she's surprised at the amount of Tory party clap she's getting." I would pay good money to have a recording of that, because it was, I was, as a young guy trying to get into radio, I was listening, mesmerised, going, how can they say that? They've said she's got, can they get away with that? I think the bosses just went, shh, say nothing. So nobody noticed. You see, live radio is dangerous unless you've got somebody who knows what they're doing. And these two do. That's the thing. So I don't know whether it was kind of a setup to see if they could get away with it, see if they wouldn't get the sack. Saying that Margaret Thatcher had the Tory party clap. Live radio, very few can do it. I mean, some can play tunes and go next, next, next. Oh, this is, that was, that's, pop and prattle, top 40 radio. But when you're doing live speech radio, it's dangerous. Anything can happen in the next half hour, said a TV show once. So I want to direct your attention to something that, well, most people missed last week. The story of Steve Wright and his passing, and everyone being quite shocked at the story. But the Sun kind of did something that my skin went cold when I saw the headlines. The Sun ran the headline, BBC killed Steve Wright story on its front page. So I will say to you that DJs, as much as they were and are still possibly the butt of jokes, although they're much hipper and cooler nowadays, they were much, 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 much more talented in the 70s and 80s. It was a completely different game. As much as the Sun really should know better, but they have form to that newspaper. But DJs, as much as they are a butt of jokes, maybe, they are national treasures. I've told you the Jimmy Young story and Chris Tarrant's story. Always appears to be in a Chinese restaurant, Chinese takeaway. But all I'll say is that they're national treasures and should be respected as such. Don't know whether you've listened to radio in your youth, whether it was in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, up to Chris Evans doing the breakfast show on BBC Radio 1. They're national treasures. And I'm sure some of these old boys are not long for falling off their perch. But it's when these national treasures, who were part of our growing up, part of our daily lives, whether it was our parents or our siblings that would have the radio on and possibly they were on in the background, let's just give them a bit of respect for helping us grow up, really. Steve Wright wasn't given that, although the outpouring of love, as I will read out with these your comments, it was just a thing of beauty.